Hello to you all. We are delighted you can join us today for the CaRMS Forum. This is being recorded, and the video will be posted on our website and YouTube channel in the coming days. I want to acknowledge Canada as the land of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. I further acknowledge the CaRMS office, located in Ottawa, stands on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. Today and always, I pay homage to the Indigenous peoples, past, present, and future, from all nations across Canada who contribute to the strength of this country. I, along with the entire CaRMS team, are grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and learn here. CaRMS is an independent, not-for-profit, fit-for-purpose organization created to provide an open, transparent application and matching process that puts thousands of medical students and residents on the path to practicing medicine in Canada every year. Established jointly by medical learners and faculties, our independence from any one medical organization is what allows us to balance applicant and faculty interests to run a match that is objective, fair, and in the best interest of all participants. We're also deeply rooted in the medical education community, with a governance structure that ensures we are guided by and accountable to the very community we serve and support. Our board of directors is drawn from member organizations, with learners comprising 35% of the CaRMS board and provides oversight of CaRMS activities. This enables us to be fully transparent on critical matters such as match processes, data, privacy, and financial stewardship. Today, more than 50 years after CaRMS was created, CaRMS remains a successful independent organization thanks to the continued collaboration of all 10 member organizations. The CaRMS team knows how important the process we manage is to our clients, the medical education community, and the Canadian public. The match is the focus of many decisions at all levels, from provincial ministries and faculties of medicine to individual training programs and applicants. Our job is to make the work of these decision makers as easy as possible to help ensure the success of the system and its participants. The 2024 match data that we will be walking through today is one of the ways CaRMS can inform decisions and contribute to this success. We know the importance of sharing this information with all match participants and stakeholders, and are pleased we can do that with you. We will be also posting this to our website, carms.ca, after the event. The system works best when everyone has access to data for informed decision making. In the slides we're about to go through, you will see the outcomes of decisions made by match participants this year and in past years, and hopefully glean some valuable insights to inform decisions you may need to make in the future. This is what we'll be covering today. A lot of the topics you see here are what have been getting attention in the news recently in relation to our healthcare system, and that's no coincidence. The data we are sharing today can provide valuable context for ongoing conversations and further understanding. We'll begin with a match overview, focus particular attention on international medical graduates, review the results of the 2024 CaRMS Self-Identification Questionnaire, examine key trends and measures relating to the family medicine discipline, explore factors and outcomes specific to unmatched Canadian medical graduates, and summarize with a few key takeaways. Ryan Kelly, CaRMS Director of Client Experience and Service Excellence, will be joining me in today's presentation, sharing data and his insights in a number of these areas. In fact, before we dive into the data, I'll welcome Ryan to give a brief overview of how you can ask questions throughout the presentation. Over to you, Ryan.
Thanks, John, and good afternoon, everyone. Before we get going, I wanted to let you know there'll be several breaks throughout today's presentation to answer questions. At the top of your screen, there's a Q&A tab, so feel free to submit questions at any time. You don't need to wait for the designated periods to begin. Anyone familiar with Teams will know there's a raise hands function. To keep things as orderly as possible, we'll not be taking any questions this way today. If you see a submitted question that you're also interested in, give it a thumbs up. You'll see that option underneath each posted question. If your question is specific to a slide from today's deck, please include the slide number in your submission. Questions can be submitted in English or French, and we'll answer as many as we can, but we may not be able to answer everything today. Finally, the CaRMS Forum deck will be posted on carms.ca later this afternoon. Everyone here will also receive an email with a link to the deck. All right, that's it for me, John. Let's get going.
Thanks, Ryan. Let's get right into the R1 match overview. Let's begin with an overview of those interested in a residency position in Canada. Here we show the two main cohorts, IMGs, those graduating from a school that is listed in the World Directory of Medical Schools, and CMGs, those graduating from a CaCMS accredited school. We specifically identify USMGs where we know there is particular interest in that cohort. In any match, applicants begin by registering. They become active participants, active applicants by applying to at least one program, and final participants are those who submit a rank order list. There were 5,329 registrants with 4,708 participating in the match by submitting a rank order list. Here are the 2024 R1 match highlights. There are two iterations of the match. First iteration data is seen on the top, applicant perspective in the table, and information on position availability, filled and unfilled, in pie charts on the right. There were 3,705 positions available. That compares to 3,532 in 2023. In the full cycle of the R1 match, both first and second iterations, 3,618 positions were filled, leaving 87 unfilled, 75 of which were in family medicine. There were 110 unfilled positions in 2023. In the end, 196 more positions were filled in 2024 as compared to last year. Of the 3,086 CMGs who submitted a rank order list, 2,934 matched. That includes 2,835 current and previous year graduates without postgraduate training in the first iteration. And in the second iteration, 64 current and previous year graduates matched in addition to 35 with prior postgraduate training. 1,602 IMGs participated in one or both iterations, with 671 matching. That is in comparison to 550 in 2023. And finally, 13 USMGs matched of the 20 who participated. Those of you quick to do the math will note there's a gap between the number of current year CMGs unmatched in first iteration and the sum of the matched and unmatched in second iteration. The difference is those who chose not to participate in second iteration after not matching in first. Here we have a summary of the R1 match after both iterations, reflecting those who will be entering residency training on July 1st of this year. In total, 3,618 positions filled, 196 more than 2023, 671 by IMGs, 124 by previous year CMGs, 2,810 current year CMGs, and 13 US medical graduates. 3,618 is the most positions filled since the inception of the match process in 1971. Similarly, 671 is the largest ever cohort of IMGs entering into residency training. This is a view of the available positions and participants for first iteration. Columns showing available positions, blue for CMG. Of note, this includes positions in Quebec where positions are available to both CMGs and eligible IMGs. Burgundy for IMG quota. IMG quota increased by 15% and CMG quota by 3.7% in 2024. The lines represent participation, again, blue CMGs and burgundy for IMGs. This data is specific to CMG participants and quota. Quota is the burgundy line above the bar. The blue portion of the bar is current year CMG participation. Green is prior year CMG, and the orange circle contains the ratio of available positions to total CMG participation. Given the quota available to CMGs and the number of participants, the ratio of quota to participants for 2024 is now 1.09. That ratio has been increasing since 2018. Quota is up 292 from 2015, or just shy of 10%. In that same period, CMG participation increased from 2,862 to 2,999 in 2024. That's a 4.8% increase. This is a good place to point out that this and many of the subsequent slides are for first iteration. You will see that clearly labeled in the lower right-hand corner. Let's break down the available positions for CMGs. These are discipline groupings you will see used frequently. Due to their size, family medicine in the blue and internal medicine in green are shown separately. Surgical disciplines, which is burgundy, include cardiac, orthopedic, vascular, plastic, general, and neurosurgery, obstetrics and gynecology, ophthalmology, otolaryngology, and urology. Non-surgical in the orange includes pediatrics, emergency medicine, psychiatry, anesthesiology, dermatology, neurology, diagnostic radiology, and radiation oncology, as well as all laboratory medicine disciplines. There's been an increase from 3,158 to 2023 in 2023 to 3,276 in 2024. That increase is across all discipline groupings. This is a similar view for IMG dedicated quota. 2024 with 425 positions compared to 370 in 2023. That is a 15% increase, with more quota in each category year over year. Thinking of the decision flow, first, applicants decide their programs of interest and where to apply. For multi-site programs, applicants make those decisions at the training site level. Programs then decide the applicants they would like to meet for interviews. This is the view for the last 5 years of the percentage of applicants receiving at least one interview offer, broken down by a number of cohorts. You can see with certain cohorts, almost all members receive at least one interview offer, while for others, the percentage is much lower. Take into account that for some groups, the population size is fairly small, which can result in somewhat dramatic shifts year over year. One notable trend is the increase from 2020 in the percentage of international medical graduates receiving interview offers, with this year more than 90% of current year IMGs receiving at least one interview offer, and more than half of previous year IMGs. This correlates to the marked increase in the number of matched IMG applicants, the highest number of matched IMGs on record. After interviews, both programs and applicants turn their attention to ranking, the most essential of decisions. An important feature of our Canadian system is that it is safe for all participants to reflect their true preferences in their rank order lists, knowing that by listing their true preferences, they put themselves in the best position to realize their desired outcomes. If you have any questions about that, I encourage you to go to CaRMS.ca and look for how it works, the match algorithm. Here, we look at the first choice disciplines for Canadian medical school graduates. That is, the discipline reflected in the #1 rank on their rank order list: family medicine in blue, internal medicine in green, surgical in burgundy, and non-surgical in orange. Here, I will highlight the increase this year in the percentage of CMGs ranking family medicine as their first choice discipline. As we all know, this metric has attracted much attention, including speculation after the first iteration that the declining trend from the past few years was continuing. When asked about first choice discipline metrics, I point out that more than half of CMG applicants apply to and rank more than one discipline, meaning their interest goes beyond their first choice. So it is important to remember that interest can be measured more holistically than the first choice discipline view. It is also important to mention that family medicine has been and continues to be the single most popular discipline as a first choice for Canadian medical graduates. The other significant shifts this year are internal medicine, with more CMGs ranking as first choice, while fewer CMGs had a surgical discipline as number one in their rank order list. Given the many conversations on the importance of primary care in the Canadian healthcare system, later in the presentation, Ryan will be shedding more light on family medicine in the context of the application, selection, and matching process. Here we bring together two essential elements: supply, as measured by available quota, and demand, as measured by, in this case, CMG applicants with the discipline as their first choice. The lines represent 10 years of data on the ratios of quota to CMG applicants with that discipline or discipline groupings as first choice. Upward slope indicates increasing supply versus demand. Downward indicates increasing demand versus supply. Using non-surgical disciplines as an example, you will see a downward trend. Therefore, more demand versus supply. In 2015, there were 88 positions available nationally for every 100 CMG applicant, ranking non-surgical disciplines as first choice. Now, in 2024, that ratio is 84 to 100. Contrast with family medicine, where we know there have been significant increases in the availability of family medicine positions and a resulting change in the supply and demand ratio. It is important to highlight that this is first iteration data. The second iteration introduces many other variables, including changes in eligibility, which impact directly on ultimate outcomes. This analysis shows the percentage of applications included on both the CMG applicant and program rank order list, with views of applications to home and away schools. The blue bar is the national view, and each of the four lines represent a region. In 2024 nationally, 76% of all CMG applications to their home school resulted in both the applicant and program ranking one another. For applications to away schools in 2024, that number is 58%. There has been a decline in each of the past 3 years since the high point in 2021. That being said, mutual rankings resulting from away applications remain considerably higher than the 2015 to 2018 period, while home application mutual ranking is closer to the results from that 2015 to 2018 timeframe. This is one of our standard outcome measures: percentage of CMGs matched to first choice discipline. Our four familiar discipline groupings, with the percentage of CMG applicants ranking one of these disciplines or discipline within one of the discipline groupings as their first choice, who matched to that discipline. I expect there isn't much surprise with these outcomes, given the supply-demand trends we saw previously. 99% or more of CMGs who ranked family medicine as first choice matched to family medicine since 2013. In fact, in 2024, almost all CMGs choosing family medicine as first choice did indeed match to family medicine, with percentage of applicants choosing internal medicine as first choice discipline matching to internal medicine, mapping the demand versus supply trend we saw earlier. Matching to surgical and non-surgical disciplines as first choice, also generally tracking the supply-demand curve for those discipline groupings. One change we have seen is applicants are also broadening their interests, including more disciplines in their rank order list. This is why we see a fairly consistent match rate among CMGs, notwithstanding changes to first choice discipline match rates. Remember what I said earlier, it is safe to express true preferences while also including all training opportunities of interest in an applicant's rank order list. Up to now, we have focused on position availability and interest for the first iteration. This is an important lens as it speaks to trends across a number of dimensions. We also note that the second iteration is an essential component for where both programs and applicants can adjust based on what they know from first iteration activity. Importantly, policymakers also consider different eligibility rules in the second iteration. That is why, after first iteration results were announced, we cautioned media and commentators about drawing any conclusions at that point in the cycle. Here we see the composition of matched applicants in second iteration for the past 6 years. Current year CMGs, previous year CMGs, IMGs, CMGs matched in previous year's matches, IMGs matched in previous year's matches, and US medical graduates. The most striking element is the number of IMGs matched in second iteration for both 2023 and 2024. Participants matched to 24 different disciplines in the second iteration. Here is the view of positions filled in the second iteration of the 2023 match, broken down by applicant cohort and discipline category. Of the 275 positions filled, 177 were in family medicine, 15 in internal medicine, 62 in non-surgical disciplines, and 21 in surgical discipline. Second iteration also offers the opportunity for those with prior postgraduate training to pursue opportunities. This is sometimes referred to as transfers, although this can include applicants not currently in training. This is a 7-year aggregate view of the movement of these applicants within and between disciplines. Each column represents the discipline or discipline category where those applicants will now be training. The various segments within the column indicate the originating discipline category. As you can see, family medicine attracts many applicants from other disciplines. At the end of the second iteration, there were 87 unfilled positions. Here is a 5-year view of unfilled positions broken down by discipline category. Now we'll pause for questions.
Thanks, John. Great start to the forum. It's pretty quiet in the Q&A section, so kudos for really laying out the information so clearly. There is one question that has been presented, recognizing that 99.8% of applicants matched to family. There's a question about what was the total number of CMGs who matched to family medicine this year?
That's a great question, and I'll actually hold my thoughts on that because I know you're going to present that in your section on family medicine. So I'll hold off on answering that one if that's okay.
Yeah, that's a-okay. I don't know if the final total is actually in mind, but we may circle back to that question.
Sure.
We've got a second one. Would you suggest that the increase of IMGs has matching in the second iteration because of an overall expansion of PGME programs ahead of expanded cohorts of UGME students graduating? I'm not sure I understand what this question is asking. Increase in...
Yeah, I think I understand what the point is that is the number of positions available outstripping, if you will, some expectation that undergraduate positions will be coming to fill those postgraduate positions. So there are a couple of policy things that have happened in the last 2 years, which I think have a bearing on this. And one is in Ontario, the second iteration became competitive for both CMGs and IMGs in the second iteration. So any positions unfilled in the first iteration became available to both CMGs and IMGs in second iteration. So I think that's one element. And in Alberta this year, there were similar eligibility changes, which I think contribute to that outcome.
Okay, so there's no more questions at this time, so I think you're off the hook. And to the audience, just a reminder that the Q&A tab is there. If a question comes to you about the information that John's already presented, feel free to pass it along and we'll respond to it in a future question period. All righty, I'm just going to bring my deck up. So John, again, thank you for walking us through the introductory data related to the forum. For those of you who don't remember my riveting housekeeping speech, I'm Ryan Kelly, the Director of Client Experience at CaRMS. Really pleased to be here to present you some information. This is my maiden voyage presenting data at the CaRMS Forum, so hopefully you enjoy and we will get started. So as John highlighted earlier, the number of matched IMGs skyrocketed in this year's match cycle. The following few slides introduce additional details about the IMG applicant pool, participating in the 2024 R1 match. The first view we would like to present is the IMG match rate organized by match attempts. Generally speaking, an IMG applicant's first match attempt is statistically their best opportunity at securing a residency position. This year's match rate for first-time participants was 49%, an increase of 17 percentage points from 2020. This data also signals that applicants in their second, third, or greater number of match attempts have opportunities to enter the Canadian training system. Illustrated in purple and green, both cohorts identified in the slide also experienced an increased match percentage from 2020. As John referenced earlier, over 77% of the record matched IMG pool of applicants were prior year graduates, many of whom participating in a previous match. Now, this chart doesn't tell the same story as the previous slide that we just looked at, but it certainly rhymes. Here we examine this year's IMG match results based on the applicant's year of graduation. We can see that current year graduates had an 87% match rate, with each subsequent year experience a reduction in overall cohort match success. Before we move to the next slide, I would like to take a moment to address a match myth. A common refrain during each match cycle is if your year of graduation is more than 3 years ago, you have no chance to match. And that simply is not true. We can see the percentage of matched applicants who graduated more than 3 years ago is significantly less than the other 4 groups, but was still over 30% this year. And you can also see in the blue column farthest to the left, 359 applicants who matched this year graduated more than 3 years ago. The other 4 categories combined had 312 total matches. I think it's safe to say that the myth is busted. Now, there are a couple of other interesting items related to this data. Of the 359 matched applicants who graduated more than 3 years ago, 176 graduated in 2014 or earlier, and 12 of those 176 graduated in the 90s. And finally, a view of IMG match success by global region. There isn't a lot of breathing room on this slide, but there is an important takeaway. The summary is that every region experienced their highest percentage match rate in the last 5 years, with the exception of our 2 smallest participating regions. These 2 regions each matched 2 fewer applicants in 2024 when compared to last year. I think it's fair to say, after considering the data John previously shared, as well as these 3 additional views, we can surmise that the IMG results from the 2024 match cycle, when compared to the previous 5 years, should be seen in a very positive light. We would like to next walk through some data related to the theme of equity, diversity, and inclusion, populated by voluntary applicant submissions of the CaRMS Self-Identification Questionnaire, commonly referred to as the CSIQ. The CaRMS Self-Identification Questionnaire was available this R1 match cycle for the 3rd time. The CSIQ was conceived after several years of conversation related to an absence of meaningful data that highlighted the journeys of equity-deserving applicants when participating in the R1 match. The CSIQ is still very much in its infancy, and there are still high hills to climb to advance the important initiative. Though the program usage of the CSIQ increased by over 20% this patch match cycle, you will soon see the applicant participation in the CSIQ decreased. So we will again only be presenting counts this year as part of the forum. Let's begin by exploring the cohorts. You will note the moderate decrease in percentage of CMGs and significant decrease in the percentage of IMGs completing the CSIQ. After initial consultation with learner leadership organizations as to why they believe participation fell this year, it's been determined that we need to focus our communication activities in 2 areas. We really need to re-clarify the purpose of the data collection and the value it can bring to the stakeholder community. We also need to highlight the importance we place on data privacy and the security measures that CaRMS has in place to protect this sensitive information. We're optimistic that these actions will generate positive momentum in the applicant fulfillment rate going forward. As these next few slides are counts and the categories of each question remains unchanged from 2023, I will leave each slide on the screen for a few moments before advancing to our next section. As an organization, we are excited for the day when we're able to produce the more substantial data pieces that the community is looking for through an EDI lens. Before advancing to the final slide in this section, I'd like to thank all the stakeholder participation and consultation activities related to the CSIQ over the years. Our approach to the CSIQ has always been progress and not perfection. And that progress is contingent on the continuation of the open and frank feedback we've received from stakeholders since we started this journey back in early 2021. Our goals with the CSIQ are unchanged. We strive to produce the important data required to better understand the diverse nature of the applicant pool. As learner participation is integral to the success of this initiative, we will continue to work with our learner support partners to improve communication and ensure the future CSIQ data we produce is robust and credible. Next up, we have a series of data points with additional details related to family medicine interest and fill rates. There's been healthy attention placed on family medicine over the last few years, and not just through a match lens within the stakeholder community. As John highlighted in earlier slides, family medicine is still by far the most popular discipline among CMG applicants. And in 2024, family medicine experienced an increase in first choice interest percentage for the first time in 11 years. As we look at the quota available over the previous 5 match cycles, family medicine has a significant supply increase in this year's match, confirming provincial interest in training more family doctors. As John shared earlier, when exploring the supply and demand ratios, you'll recall that family medicine had a slight decline from 1.58 positions per applicant in 2023 to 1.54 in this year's match. A quota increase coupled with a tighter supply and demand ratio is a good news story coming from this year, as it shows the increase of interest in family medicine was even greater than the significant increase in positions available. This visual presents aggregate training sites, quota, and distinct applicants from the last 5 years. Though the quota and training sites from 2020 to 2022 stayed more or less the same, quota increased significantly in each of the last 2 years, and there are 12 more training sites in 2024 than there were in 2022. The total number of distinct applicants has also increased in each of the last 3 cycles, but the count from 2024 is 110 fewer than the 2020 match year. The next chart reinforces what you have seen at several points already in today's forum presentation, that overall interest in family medicine increased in 2024 when compared to 2023. If I could only showcase one number from this slide, I would highlight the number of IMG applicants ranking family medicine and ultimately matching. The 420 matches is more than a 15% increase from last year's IMG match count and a 45% increase from the 2020 match cycle. I would also like to highlight one additional smaller detail revealed in the data. The previous slide showed us a total of 3,463 applicants applying to family medicine this year. And this slide tells us 3,107 applicants ultimately ranked family medicine. This is a near 2% increase in the number of applicants, including family medicine on their rank list when compared to last year's match. As was pointed out earlier, 99.8% of CMG applicants who ranked family medicine as their first choice discipline matched to family. And as a previous slide highlighted, 97.8% of applicants who ranked family anywhere on their list matched. The next two slides will give some additional insight about the incoming CMG resident class who listed family medicine as a desired career path through two lenses. This table shows us that 2024 featured the largest number of CMGs matching to family medicine as their first choice discipline over the last 5 years as part of first iteration. Yes, 930 is only one higher than 929, but it's still higher. This second view shows the training path distribution of matched CMG applicants who included family medicine on their rank list. Of the 1,144 CMGs matched to family medicine in first iteration, approximately 83% matched to their home province, and just over 57% matched to their home school of grad. And finally, here we look at the number of unfilled family medicine positions by region. As you likely expected, this year had fewer unfilled positions than the 2023 cycle, but also fewer unfilled than 2022 and 2021 cycles as well. Family medicine continues to be the most popular first choice discipline among CMG applicants, and every year, in or around 2/3 of the applicant pool includes a family medicine program on their rank list. Every individual applicant makes many choices throughout the application process, and more often than not, they see family medicine as a potential career choice they would be happy with. I will now open the floor to questions, and I am also the moderator for this question period, so I will access the questions. So to circle back to the question that was asked in the first section, the number of CMGs matched in this year's match, the total number of CMGs matched was 1,391. The next question, can you chat about reversion in first round? Were there many programs using reversion as an option? Do you think this impacted the overall match rate, especially for family medicine? So first, I'll explain what a reversion is. A reversion is a match tool available to all postgraduate offices. And what it does is it gives them the opportunity to provide us an instruction that once a program's assigned quota can't be filled, so the rank order list has been exhausted and quota remains unused, we can move that quota to another program to maximize the opportunity of fill rate within the school or within a particular discipline. Yeah, there were more programs using reversions in first iteration, and there were more creative ways in the way that reversions were used this year. I wouldn't want to get too deep into the details right now because I don't think it would be appropriate to talk about individual school strategies without their permission, but absolutely reversions are being harnessed more and more to ensure that that the amount of time programs spend conducting their file review activities is maximized so that they're not nearly as often obligated to participate in second iteration. We all know the first iteration applicant pool is its deepest, the deepest CMG pool and the deepest IMG pool. So PGME offices are becoming more and more open to the idea of making quota adjustments in first iteration to ensure that they can maximize the time that's already been expended as part of file review. Because we all know that the time it puts into the application period is significant. The time it takes to review files and interview candidates and create a rank list is also quite significant, especially in family where there's often multiple training sites to consider. The next question. Do we have any data on the rates of IMGs matching who are Canadian citizens? Yeah, so I guess one of the preconditions for match participation is that you're a Canadian citizen or permanent resident. So there's no IMGs participating in the match outside of a very, very small handful, potentially within Quebec, that are eligible to match to a position in the R1 match. John, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to it beyond that, but it's the base requirement for match participation as being a permanent resident or Canadian citizen.
Nothing to add, Ryan. That's exactly what I would have said.
The next question, could you speak to the trend of IMG applications? Has it decreased over time and contribute to the match rate for IMGs? I don't believe it's decreased over time at a per unit basis. The volume of unique applicants isn't as high as it was several years ago. I can't speak to whether the overall number has impacted the match rate, or as we just discussed through the reversion process, if there's an increase in the number of IMGs matching because programs are willing to adjust their quota allocations in first iteration after considering a CMG cohort. I think if I don't want to speak out of turn, but I believe John will get into more detail about this in the next section. Okay, we have no more questions now, so back to you, John.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate that that really rich exploration of those important areas. So thanks for that, and thanks for the answer to those questions. That really adds some great insight. We'll now turn our attention to unmatched Canadian medical graduates. While it is true that the great majority of CMGs will match in the first iteration, and many more in the second iteration, the outcome of unmatched CMGs is a topic of keen interest to many, and we have devoted significant effort to support better understanding. We showed in an earlier slide the ratio of available positions to the number of CMG participants. That number is now 1.09. So 109 positions for every 100 Canadian medical graduates. It's obvious that within those broad measures, there are many factors at play in terms of the interest in disciplines and locations from the CMG applicant perspective, and of course, the selection considerations for programs. We hope that what follows will shed light on some of those factors. Here we see data for two groups of CMG applicants. The blue line represents current year CMGs who are unmatched after both iterations, the same number and percent as in 2023. The burgundy line reflects current year CMGs who do not match in first iteration and choose not to participate in second iteration. There had been an upward trend since 2014, with 2023 being the highest proportion at 2%. That trend shifted in 2024, with both the number and percent reducing to 2020 levels. This is a view of unmatched CMGs after first iteration, and we will look at this predominantly through a supply and demand lens. There were 164 unmatched CMGs in first iteration. Of those, 130 had a first choice discipline with more demand than supply, and 34 a first choice discipline of more supply than demand. For the full group of CMGs participating in first iteration, 47% had a first choice discipline with demand greater than supply. For the first iteration unmatched group, that measure is 79%. That's probably not very surprising. However, it is important to recognize these basic elements of opportunity and interest that may misalign. Additionally, we separated those groups between those who applied to programs where there was at least one position available after first iteration or not. For example, in the demand greater than supply group, 61 of 130 applied only to programs where there were no positions remaining. Going one step further, we will now see the number of disciplines ranked on this slide for CMG applicants with first choice discipline with more demand than supply. You can see on the left-hand slide, those applying to programs with no unfilled quota after first iteration. 43 of 61, or 70% of applicants ranked only one discipline. 49% of all participating CMGs ranked one discipline. You will appreciate that the combination of one ranked discipline or even two disciplines, and that discipline or disciplines attracting more applicants ranking only that discipline and there are positions available, creates a situation where it is inevitable that there will be unmatched applicants. And it is possible that applicants are unmatched even if ranked. There are simply not enough positions available in that discipline as compared to applicant interest. The possibility that applicants pursue relatively few locations, of course, compounds the challenge. For the group represented in the graph on the right, it is still the case that position availability versus combined applicant interest creates an imbalance. However, as there is at least one unfilled position, program preference may be a factor. All this being said, applicants have control over their decision-making and, in my experience, are indeed eyes wide open about their choices. Nonetheless, the decision-making is hard. These charts speak to first iteration unmatched CMGs with a first choice discipline of more supply than demand. A majority in both categories ranked one discipline. Again, overall, 49% of CMGs ranked one discipline. Here we have a much smaller group of applicants. Availability of positions is not the issue at the discipline level. However, limited choice of location can be a factor, for example, with the group on the left, where there are no unfilled positions. For further context, here are the match rates for CMGs ranking one discipline with data from 2015 and 2024. Burgundy is all disciplines, and contrasting match rates for family medicine and all high demand disciplines. You can see that the overall match rate declined slightly from 2015 to 2024, those ranking only one discipline with high demand disciplines driving that overall reduction. In this slide, we look at applications to disciplines with supply greater than demand to see what differences emerge between matched and unmatched CMGs through the key stages. Recall that there are 34 unmatched applicants in this group. This funnel starts naturally enough with applications for each group. I will highlight that this is applications and not applicants. Applicants, of course, have multiple applications. You can see that there is a significant difference in the percentage of interviews offered, over 90% for the matched group and 71% for the unmatched group, and then an even more significant difference in mutual ranks. Mutual ranking is, of course, essential for a match to occur. 70.6% of applications from matched applicants are mutually ranked. That compares to 9.7% for unmatched CMGs. Let's break that down one more level. Here we are looking at the ranking behavior of applicants and programs in the case of applications from unmatched CMGs with first choice discipline of more supply than demand. We categorize the ranking associated with all applications. The four categories are mutually not ranked, applicant ranks program, but program does not rank applicant, program ranks applicant, but applicant does not rank program, and finally, mutually ranked. On this slide, we have two categories. Mutually not ranked in burgundy, i.e. neither side shows interest through their rank order list, and program ranks applicant, but applicant does not rank program in blue, i.e. the program is interested, but the applicant is not interested. Mutually not ranked has declined by approximately 10% in the last 8 years, while the percentage of applications where the program is interested and the applicant is not interested has risen dramatically from 3% in 2015 to 40% in 2024. So, of the 34 unmatched applicants in this group, 40% or 14 applicants would have been matched but chose not to rank the program. Here we look at the other two ranking combination possibilities. There is a downward trend line for the percentage of applicant ranking and not programs over the 10-year measurement period, however, with significant up and down variation over the years. 2024 shows a significant reduction at 24% versus 44% in 2023. In the situation where there was a mutual ranking for that particular program, there were no unfilled positions. In this slide, we look at applications from applicants whose first choice discipline had demand greater than supply. 130 of the 164 unmatched in first iteration are in this group. Availability of positions versus number of applicants is clearly a major factor here, with programs narrowing the funnel quickly. The percentage of mutual rankings shows less gap here between matched and unmatched. For disciplines where demand exceeds supply, this year we see a 10% increase in the scenario where neither side is interested, from 22% in 2023 to 32% in 2024. That reverses a general downward trend since 2015. Percentage of applications where applicants are interested and not programs has increased somewhat since 2015. Recall that for surgical and non-surgical disciplines overall, there are more applicants in relative terms to position availability over the 10-year period, as we saw in the supply-demand curves earlier. In many cases, programs with similar quota year over year will continue to interview and rank more or less the same number of applicants. So, with more applicants, an increasing number will not be ranked. Here we see the mutual ranking scenario that did not result in a match, consistently close to 20% over the past 10 years. Again, a direct result of positions being filled before that mutual rank is reached. In disciplines where demand is greater than supply, the instance of programs ranking and applicants not ranking is negligible. Following the path of unmatched first iteration applicants into second iteration, this shows us the propensity to change first choice discipline. Of the 120 current year CMGs unmatched in first iteration and participating in second iteration, just under 55% changed their first choice discipline, which is the same percentage as last year. Here's a breakdown of the 54 unmatched CMGs after second iteration based on program ranking profiles. 27 were not ranked by any programs. 13 were ranked by some programs, and 11 were ranked by all programs, but programs filled before rank. 3 could have matched, but did not rank the program. Let's circle back to the decision to participate or not in second iteration for current year CMGs. This is the 5-year view. For a number of years, the number not participating was increasing. That trend shifted in 2024. We have explored this in the past, and we will come back to that focus. The common thread, as mentioned in previous years, was the lack of opportunity in those applicants' first choice discipline going into second iteration. You will see highlighted here are the numbers not participating with no unfilled quota in their first choice discipline. For example, dermatology and diagnostic radiology. In 2024, of 44 who chose not to participate, 26 or 59% had a first choice discipline with no positions available. Of the 56 in 2023 who chose not to participate in second iteration, 40 or 71% had a first choice discipline with no positions available. In 2022, that percentage was 76, 2021, 77%. Notwithstanding the various factors that may lead to the decision to not participate in second iteration, there is interest in understanding more about this group. Let's start with the first question. Do those CMGs participate in the subsequent year? The answer overwhelmingly is yes. For the 2023 group of 56, 53 participated in this year's match. You can see the participation rate here for the last 5 years, consistently close to or above 90%. The next question, do those applicants continue with the same first choice discipline as in the initial year? Here is that percentage. The years on the y-axis indicate the initial year of match participation. Specifically for the 2023 group, 41 of 53 participating ranked the same first choice discipline in 2024. Finally, the question often asked is, what percent actually matched to that first choice discipline? In summary, of the 53 who participated from 2023, 25 matched to the original first choice discipline. That's out of the 41 who ranked the same discipline as in the initial year. 23 matched to a different discipline, and 5 did not match. When looking at CMG match rates, we always want to consider the long term. Here, we look at the ultimate success of the Canadian medical graduate in terms of obtaining a residency position over time through the application, selection, and match process. As we see here, CMG match rates approximate 99.5% for the past 10 years between initial and subsequent match participation years. So some takeaways. As we have seen, there are many ways of looking at the inputs, decisions, and outcomes involved in the application selection and matching system. What we see is a system that is responsive to an increase in the number of positions available, as well as policy decisions and applicant interest. Outcomes are the direct result of the decisions made at all levels. Availability of positions, applicant and program interest, and preferences ultimately determine the results we see. For this year, we see the result of various policy changes and the continued thoughtfulness of applicants and programs in their decision-making process. 2024 was a record-setting year in many respects. Thank you for joining us in this overview. We are pleased and honored to be the stewards of the match system and to share this data with you. Now we'll turn it back to Ryan for more questions.
Perfect. Thanks, John, and thanks for again for an excellent presentation. There are a few, you can sit back for a moment and get a breath. I've got to circle back to a few questions from my section. So there, I guess maybe I didn't articulate it very clearly, but I see there was a follow-up question about the IMG matching rates who are Canadian citizens, asking, does CaRMS produce any Canadian studying abroad data? The short answer is no, we don't. Provincial eligibility or IMG application is what we use to populate the data in the deck. So if the province doesn't differentiate by creating unique streams and identifying unique groups of application, we don't produce data outside of what the eligibility general looks like. So hopefully that answers that question. There was a question about, can you speak to the trend of IMG applications? Has it decreased over time and contributed to the match rate for IMGs? So I looked at the number of applicants who participated, who ultimately submitted rank lists. And in 2020, it was 1,434. And in 2024, it was 1,602. And my understanding of the average number of applications, that it's not dramatically different within that time. It may even have increased slightly. So I don't know if it's necessarily a volume change in application. It could be numerous things, but I don't think I'm in a position to actually answer what may have sparked such an increase in IMG match rate outside of some of the things we talked about before, reversions and increased opportunity. The next question before we hand it back to John, is there any insight you can provide regarding why Quebec had such a significant portion of the total unmatched family medicine residents in Canada? I don't have any insights. I definitely have some hypotheses. Our intention is to work with the province to any degree possible to best understand their match outcomes, to really work with them to try to maximize their match success. I know that they see the match results and they see a portion of positions that they want filled that currently aren't being filled. And it's our role as a partner in the match to work with them to the greatest degree possible, to have them understand what's happening so that they can make really strategic and wise decisions going forward to try to manipulate that number into a lower or a better match outcome for the province. So John, a question for you. Has there been any modeling or thought given to how increased use of reversions might increase the CMG unmatch rate or change behavior, as CMGs are currently operating under the assumption they will have a decent selection of primarily unfilled family medicine seats in second iteration, should they go unmatched in first?
Thanks for that question. So the answer is yes. There are conversations that we have with those who are in the position to make those decisions around eligibility and talking about, and we do have the ability to do simulations and various scenarios, and we do that in consultation with those policymakers and faculties of medicine, and we provide that feedback. So that's fairly early. Not a lot of that has happened. We do have that ability, and I do know those kinds of things are very much at the heart of what people want to understand.
Thanks for that. Before we get to the next question, I don't want you to feel too camera shy. You've been on camera the whole time. Oh, there he is. He's back. All right, question 9. On slide 43, just to understand, does that mean a total of 3.4 unmatched CMGs after second iteration? So I'll let you get there first, and then I'll start the question again. Just to understand, does that mean a total of 3.4% unmatched CMGs after second iteration? Both percentage numbers are separate on the graph, those who participated in second and those who didn't. I didn't get a look at the graph long enough to confirm.
Sure, that's a good question. So to be clear, we the term we use for unmatched CMGs are those who participate in both iterations. So when we say unmatched, that's what we mean. But if you were to ask the question, how many current year CMGs did not fill a position, then the number will be 3.4%. Yes, a combination of participating in both iterations and only one iteration.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I believe that is all the questions we have in the deck. I'm just going to look to my moderator quickly for a thumbs up in our chat to confirm that we're not waiting for any last submissions. And we're good to go.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ryan, and thanks to all of you. I want to take the opportunity to say that there are many people from the CaRMS team who have contributed to today's forum. At the risk of embarrassing them, 3 in particular have been instrumental. Danielle McFall, Derek Noakes, and Lisa Turriff all are terrific and have my deep appreciation. Of course, thanks to Ryan for his expertise and insights. Thanks to all attendees who joined us for the 2024 CaRMS Forum and for your questions. As always, those questions and the many conversations we have over the match cycle will inform what we present in future. The data from this presentation is up on our website now, and it will also be sent to you by email shortly. The event video will be up on our website as well in the coming days. Once again, thank you. Have a wonderful day.